Joining us right now is Indiana Republican Senator Todd Young, a member of Senator Schumer's bipartisan AI working group. He helped organize the gathering yesterday. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So I think the big question was, or is, what did you learn? What was the one thing that you think you took away from this that you think you didn't understand before?
Well, I think most fundamentally, we found that all the individuals you mentioned and everyone else present, from labor to civil rights groups, they all think that there's an appropriate role for government. And most of them are of the opinion that we're going to have to adopt a light touch approach to regulation to make sure that, on one hand, we address any concerns or risks that people have about the continued enablement of society through artificial intelligence, but also want to make sure the United States of America leads the way so that our values ultimately are embedded within this technology, not the values of anyone else who might, leap ahead of us, say the Chinese Communist Party.
Senator, you use the phrase light touch regulation. When we've heard from folks like Sam Altman, who started OpenAI, he hasn't used that phrase exactly, and a number of folks that are actually in the industry have, frankly, called quite openly and publicly for regulation of this. What do you think the distinction is between that and what you're saying?
You know, I'm not sure there is a really great distinction. I would just emphasize we want to focus on use case by use case and then assess the need to regulate accordingly. So, as it relates to using artificial intelligence technology to try and design a new toxin or a new chemical substance, that should be highly regulated because we know there's a large risk that someone out there, some bad actors, will develop a toxin that could hurt others. Right. If instead someone's using artificial intelligence to design new toys, a much lower regulation probably would, be expected of that. So I think there's probably alignment, but there will ultimately be some disagreement about how many individuals we need to put on the beat, what sort of qualifications they should have, and most importantly, what sort of rules we're going to set here in Washington as we continue to develop artificial intelligence technologies and then deploy them to the world.
Senator, there were some questions asked yesterday about whether this meeting should have been or could have been done in a more transparent way, meaning it would be an open meeting that would have been made public to the media and therefore would have been made public to the citizens of the country. Do you think you could have done that? Do you think you could have gotten whatever information you got in a private setting? Do you think you could have got that in a public setting?
Well, first, let me say that's a fair concern. I think it's really important to have public hearings and shine a lot of light into these sorts of conversations. But I do feel like having this forum, at least initially as members of the U.S. Senate, are in an information gathering stage, which we are. It was important to have unguarded conversations. And we heard things from a number of individuals that I don't think we would have perhaps heard in a more public setting. We heard about the labor market disruptions that could happen associated with this technology. We heard about all the amazing upsides. I do want to emphasize that. But we heard about some of the national security implications. So you just tend to have a lot more candid conversation. And during this information gathering stage, I think that's appropriate. You know, the most private meetings we have here on Capitol Hill on an ongoing basis are individual meetings with individual tech executives and what have you. So absent this sort of consultative forum, we would have still had those meetings. And ultimately, I want to emphasize, it is the intent of Senator Schumer, myself, and others to go through a bipartisan process of regular order, meaning using the committees of jurisdiction and ultimately, having the public watch all those proceedings in coming months.
Can you speak specifically to this? One of the reasons that Elon Musk has said that he's gotten into the generative AI business effectively is that he's concerned that a number of the leading generative AI companies and operators are doing it, A, for profit, and B, won't do it in a way that is completely open, and that is something that he believes for humanity is necessary. After listening to this debate yesterday, to some degree, I imagine, where do you land?
I think we need both open source models and more proprietary closed source models. One of the things we find about proprietary models is even though they may be more secure, there are clever actors out there who can hack the systems and figure out how to make their code more visible to themselves and effectively open source. It's also worth noting that if you have an open source system, that does democratize artificial intelligence. We want that to happen. It democratizes use and development, but it also makes it easier for any rank and file bad actor to use these amazing tools, which are going to increase our productivity between 30 and 50%, we had heard, by people who will use them to bad ends. So it's a balance, and I think the real key is making sure the United States and our companies and innovators and investors stay ahead of those in the rest of the world so that we have the innovations to counter any bad effects of the next successive wave of AI.
Senator Young, I want to thank you for joining us this morning, and we look forward to talking to you again, as I know you will be following this issue very, very closely. We're coming right back.